Welcome. It's a Friday, and I'm here with Matt Duffield, wrestler, legislator extraordinaire, and I'm Andy McNeill. And welcome to our podcast. Our podcast is all about challenging the status quo and really trying to take a fresh look at the different ideas that sound uh, uh, that might be new and different that historically people might not accept. And we're part of Free Arkansas. Matt, you want to tell them a little bit about what we're trying to do?
Yeah, sure. Well, Andy, it's good to see you again. I know you're out in California today in Beverly Hills. I loved my time when I wrestled in California. I'd love to get back out there at some point. But essentially, Andy, you and I have always been on the same page in regards to free and critical thinking. And I think that the more knowledge someone has, the better off we as a society are. So I think this podcast, we don't have an agenda. We don't have a certain thing we're quote lobbying for. It is to free think, put critical thought into issues that can help make Arkansas better, and that's the ultimate goal, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I think too. I like the idea that, we would take a look at what we've always historically done and sort of ask the question about like, does it still make sense? So one of the things that I might just point to, sort of interesting, and I don't know if you got a thought about this, if you like this or not, but when I watched the Super Bowl, I guess it's now been a couple of weeks. I don't know what you think about the kickoffs, but the NFL, I'm sure if it was open to everybody, they might not have changed the kickoff, right? But they changed it to it improves the game. Do you like it? Like what do you think about the way they changed the kickoff around?
Well, Andy, I'll be honest, I'm not a big NFL guy. I don't watch a lot of NFL football. I'm more of a college guy. But NFL football is the same as in my view other professional sports. If I want to watch NBA, I tell you what I go to, Andy, and that's old school footage of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird on ESPN. A guy that was so confident, he said, "You know what? I'm going to play an entire game with my left hand."
Yeah.
And still dominate, and he pretty much did that. So to be honest with you, I don't have a strong opinion on the NFL. I know the halftime show, I believe, got more attention, at least from what I saw online, than the game. But that's what's to be expected in a
You
halftime show these days. I believe the Travis Tritt halftime shows are pretty much a thing of the past, I think.
Yeah, it did get a lot of attention for sure, and I didn't even watch it. What I did notice about it was that Lionel Messi got almost 1 million likes when he showed up. I don't know if you know who that is. He's the big soccer player, the global soccer player, and I guess he's got such a following globally that he had, double the likes that the NFL's, Instagram post had. But what I was really trying to get at is that, whether it's football or other sports, is the idea that the rules we can change over time to accommodate the sport in such a way that it improves it, for the safety of the players, for the public, just like basketball put in the 3 points. And I'm just suggesting that we could do that here in the state, and today we're going to talk about fluoride. But before we do that, I wanted to see if there's some things that you had an opinion on. I don't know if you followed them. Did you happen to see that the Trump administration fired our U.S. attorney in Northeast Arkansas, Jonathan Ross, and then reversed it? Did you happen to see that?
I did, Andy. Yeah, I read. I try to read all the national news every morning as best I can, and I did. I read that. I thought that was really interesting. A lot of interesting things going on in D.C.
Do you think, do you have a view? And I'm going to tell you my view here in a second. Do you have a view about why they reversed it?
No, you tell me your thoughts because I
Well,
just I
here's what
just
I
read
think.
the article.
Here's what I think. I don't perceive the Trump administration is a group that actually likes to say that they got something wrong, right? Like they just don't admit fault, just generally speaking. In fact, I can't think of many times where I could actually think where they go like, I got it wrong. But this is a case where reversing it, they got it wrong, right? Like, so somebody there said, ooh, we didn't really mean to do that. Here's my theory. My theory is they didn't check with Tom Cotton, and that Cotton caught wind of the change and it's got enough clout to make him reverse. I don't know. You think that could have any legs, or am I just barking up the
No,
wrong tree?
well, Andy, I think it's very possible. I mean, I think in state level politics, I can speak for directly, and I think I would assume national level politics falls a lot in the same category, and that is that there's a lot of times there's not great communication with the elected officials on certain topics. and I've always tried to do my best to be a solid communicator. I mean, here's my phone. We carry it in our hand all day long. I mean, how long does it take to send a text? I mean, and have a 5 minute conversation. So, no, I think your theory, I mean, is absolutely possible. Yeah.
This is Misty, our fact checker. And so, Misty, give us the fact check.
So, yes, it was Tom Cotton because when Tom Cotton found out he had been fired, the story behind this Ross guy is that he was actually there when Trump was in office the first time, and then the guy who was holding that position actually left that office because he knew he would probably get fired by Biden himself. So this guy got in because of the changing administration, but then Biden never appointed anybody. So he's just been a holdover from the first Trump administration in the first place. So
Got
there
it.
you go.
Got it. Interesting. Well, I find it just interesting in terms of how it relates back to what we want to talk about is this concept that says, I'm going to challenge status quo. So if you read the papers, a lot of times the spin is more, let's say, hysteria or more extreme than something just as simple as, do we need these people doing these same things, yes or no? And if we could kind of look at it in a common sense way, maybe we wouldn't be so emotional about it. Right. And so that's just one of the ways I think about that. And maybe we can kind of segment that. Well, maybe before we do, I am curious. Anything interesting going on in the Senate in the House in the last couple of days that's worth even just mentioning for fun?
Yeah, Andy, it's in full swing. I mean, as we've discussed, there's 100 members of the House, myself included, and there's a lot of different eclectic personalities, and you're starting to see some of those personalities have a few more disagreements than they did a month ago. But where I my standpoint is, I was elected to represent the 30,000 people in Russellville, Arkansas, and Pope County. So I just try to keep my head down and do the work and get some good legislation passed. And it's going well, I believe, this session.
Tell me about the arm wrestling.
Yeah. So there's an arm wrestler named Michael Todd. So I'll tell you about Michael Todd. Number one, he is one of the largest human beings I've ever been around in my life. I'm 6'1", 6'2", 275. He's 6'5", 325. And his arms are, and I've been around some really big guys through the years from out where you're at, Andy, out in California, Venice Beach. I've seen guys who were dialed in for photo shoots for magazines, and I'm telling you, Michael Todd's one of the biggest guys. So he was born in Malvern, Arkansas, and he now has his training. It's not just a facility, it's a compound. He gave myself and Representative Matt Brown a tour, and he started arm wrestling at age 17 in Malvern. And he actually he loved arm wrestling, but there was not a lot of it going on. So he essentially had to create his own training equipment. So a lot of his own equipment he's built. Well, since that time, he's now 52 years old. I believe that's right. He's 52 now. And he has won over 20 world arm wrestling championships. And he's the most well-known, recognized professional arm wrestler from the entire country. And he's from right here, born and bred in Malvern. So I recognized him. I felt like he needed to be honored for that. I mean, he doesn't get a whole lot of media attention because arm wrestling has not had a strong TV presence like football, basketball, and other sports. There just hasn't been that weekly episodic presence of arm wrestling on ESPN. Of course, I'm sure you remember the movie Over the Top with Sylvester
Oh,
Stallone.
yeah.
I mean, that was kind of the thing that really got people talking about it. And back in the day, Andy, 70s and 80s, guys would go to bars, and what would they do? A lot of times they'd arm wrestle. Well, people don't really do that as much anymore. And I will tell you this, from my perspective, he showed me a few pointers to apply in arm wrestling when I was over there. And I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't arm wrestle that guy
That's what I wanted to
on my
know.
best day.
Did you actually say, let me just give it a, could you hold him for
No,
like 1 second? Or he would just be
no.
like, bam.
No, I think he would have broke my arm. I mean, now, the name of the game now is in my life physically, is to try to get up and down the steps at the Capitol. So,
Yeah.
and carry a bag. So, but no, he's a really good guy. His wife's very supportive of him. They've been married a long time, and she was an arm wrestler as well too. She's a very, very fit lady, and she keeps herself in top shape as well. But he's got some big arm wrestling matches coming up. But there's so many hidden gems, Andy, in the state of Arkansas. People don't know that are from here.
Yeah.
They're just not
Yeah.
aware of it. And I think, in the legislature, when we run resolutions to honor, the Cyclones winning a state championship or things of that nature, I think it's important to, utilize that to recognize some that have done some really great things, not just in Arkansas, but all over the world. And I think everybody enjoyed that. I think there were a lot of legislators that were not aware of Michael Todd.
It sounds a little bit like our district attorney Jeff Phillips, who's crushing it in weightlifting. I'm sure you know Jeff.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know,
phenomenal.
yeah, he's. I mean, to see how much the guy deadlifts at the size he is pretty impressive.
And I'll say this as well too, Andy. Jeff, I've known Jeff a long time, and I just want to take a moment and thank everybody in my district's been great. And I swear I'm not just saying that because I see what other legislators deal with from their districts. Everybody from all sides of the aisles treated me with nothing but respect. We have some interesting legislation come along that, for best I can see, the quote extreme far right and quote extreme far left they agree. And one of my colleagues made the comment to me. He said, when you have policy the extreme right and the extreme left agree on, he said that's not good policy, typically speaking. So, but I appreciate the district. I appreciate our Mayor Teague, our county judge Ben Cross. I mean, those guys, I have a great line of communication with them because there's some issues that come up that will affect the city and county level, and I really want their feedback. And the good news is when they give me their feedback, it's aligned with mine every time, so it makes for an easy vote. Even if I'm not in the majority of Republicans, I'm here to represent the district. So,
All right, Matt, did you see RFK finally got confirmed and sworn in as the health safety czar of the U.S.? What do you think about that?
I mean,
Good, bad?
I'm all for it. RFK, he's an out of the box thinker. I'm an out of the box thinker, and one thing's for certain: we know that there are things in our food supply in America that are not good.
Yeah.
There's anyone who would I don't think anyone debates that from any side of the aisle now. So the fact that we now have someone in that position who can lead the charge to help get a lot of these things that are in our food that we don't need, that are essentially poisons to us, and I think it's great. And not only that, I'll say this: in my travels, for example, when I was in Japan, a lot of the foods that they have in these different countries, for example, an Oreo cookie or a Wendy's hamburger, etc. If you go, this is just my perspective, when I've eaten foods like that in foreign countries, they have a different taste to them than we have here. And I think they taste better without a lot of the ingredients that we put in the foods over here.
I think, sort of expanding on that a little bit, one of the things that I think I would say is that I love the American health system in so many ways, but it's not perfect, right? And so often we have things that we just accept as that's the norm and we don't question it, right? We just say, okay, well, somebody smarter than me made that decision, therefore I shouldn't question it, And so I think it's good for us to question certain things, right? So I know the bill doesn't actually, I think this is right. There's not a bill on the floor for fluoride just yet, but there could be one. Is that correct?
Yeah, so essentially where we're at now, well, I'll back up a little bit and kind of explain how I got involved in this. So Senator Penzo, he's taken the lead on the fluoride legislation. And I caught wind that he was doing that, and fluoride is not something that was on my legislative to-do list for this session. But in my history, my past of looking at fluoride and doing my independent research, I'm not a proponent of fluoride at all. And I thought, if he's looking for someone to run with it and take the lead in the House, I'd love the opportunity. Even if we didn't have the votes to make the change, I thought it'd be a good experience, bring some awareness. And to me, conversation's always good, especially when it comes to our water supply.
But let me ask you this. So is there a bill on the House or the Senate related to fluoride, or is there one that exists today or not? And is there one you think will come?
Okay, so as of today, there are two that have been filed.
Okay. And what do they say?
And so the first one we took that would end the mandate of fluoridating our water supply. And that one was in public health in the Senate committee this past week. So Senator Penzo and I presented it. We had people from all over the state, including a dentist, including a chiropractor, including a medical doctor from right here in Russellville, that showed up to support our stance. The people who showed up to speak against our bill were all lobbyists. There were no individuals that came to speak against our bill. And everyone that showed up did get to speak. Some got to speak longer than others, and then they made a motion and limited the discussion to 2 minutes each. Which that's up to the chair, and those things happen, and,
Yeah,
and
of
that's
course.
how it goes. But the final vote, it was 4-4, and so we needed 5 votes to get it to pass. Going in, I knew what the vote count was, and I had discussions with a few
So
of the
that one
senators.
didn't get out of committee. Is that way to think about it?
It did not get out of committee, no.
Okay. And so what's the other bill say? And
Okay,
where does
the
that
other
sit?
bill is essentially a local control vote. And
Okay.
so that one is the one we're looking at doing now.
Is that going to get out of committee, you think, or not?
So this bill will go to the state agencies committee in the Senate. And in my conversations with Senator Penzo, he thinks that there may be a better opportunity to get that bill out of state agencies
Okay.
close to public health.
So let's just go through it. So 4 people in the committee vote against it, 4 vote for it. So let's just sort of talk about, let's just kind of lay some groundwork here. And I think I've got some of these things right. So the vast majority of the United States drinks fluorinated water. It's like 73%, give or take. But um, the rest of the world doesn't really do it that way, right? I mean,
Yeah,
they don't do it in Europe, right?
yeah. So Andy, in our closing remarks, the last point I made was that we are one of 25 countries in the world that adds fluoride to our water, and that's out of 195 countries.
Yeah.
And
And
that
go
should
on.
be
Sorry.
enough to make people pause and say, well, wait a minute, let's think about this. You know, we're one of 25 out of 195, and Andy, that kind of goes to, my mind and your mind, how our minds work as business owners. We look at the numbers, we look at the bottom line of things, and that to me, if I didn't know anything about fluoride and I heard that would raise my eyebrows. So I really tried to end with that point. And Senator Penzo did a fantastic job, I thought, as well.
Well, one of the things that I would say is that, sometimes we make these policy changes at moments in time when there's other variables that justify what we're doing, right? So let's just say, I don't know what year it started in the United States putting the fluoride in, but, if you were to look back in time and you lived in a world where people weren't brushing their teeth as often, not flossing their teeth as often, you might say, gee, it's in the public health to do this. But I also think part of the time back then was there was this view that the government would just make this decision and just turn it on for us. I think that there's other things that I would point to. So let's just kind of go through some of them, just as fact points, just go one at a time here. So I believe it was not that long ago when a bill passed in the Arkansas House and the Senate that basically said you must fluorinate your water if you've got greater than 5,000 residents. Am I right about that?
I believe that was in 2011.
Yeah, so not too long ago, right? And I'm assuming the gentleman that did this, did it because he thought it was the right move, right? I mean, I'm guessing he's not trying to actually do something different. But it is interesting that I believe that most of the sport came from the insurance industry, which were really sort of pushing this on people. And, it's so kind of to your point before, not that lobbyists or insurance people don't have a say, but it is interesting that it's just not the residents, it's other constituents that have, let's just say, an agenda. Would that be a way to think about it?
I mean, no, I understand what you're saying. And the bottom line is, Andy, if we had Andy and Matt's lobbying firm in Little Rock, we are going to go speak for or against bills that we are getting paid from different corporations and entities to express their opinions. So that's the way it works. If you and I have a lobbying firm, well, I can't speak for you and I because I think you and I operate a little different, and we would go stand for things. It wouldn't matter if we were getting paid or not if we thought
So
they
are
were the
you
right
suggesting
thing.
that I wouldn't take $1 and go against something that I
Right.
believed in?
No, we're not going to do
Which I
that.
wouldn't. I wouldn't do that.
I
But
agree. But
yes, I would
typically
only
speaking,
lobby for things I believed in, you know? And
but
so,
that's what they're getting paid to do, and it just, and not just in this case, in this committee, and I'm not picking on these committee members. Hey, look, everyone down there's been elected. What their vote is, that's their vote, and if that's what their constituents want, so be it. But what I always find interesting in not just that committee but others is you'll have concerned citizens show up and express their opinion of the real issue that's happening that they are seeing and they're experiencing, and they'll come and they'll speak. Well, here comes lobbyist John, who's getting paid to represent an interest, and it's always surprising to me how many legislators, they tend to listen more to the lobbyist than the citizens who experience the actual direct issue at hand that they're expressing. I've always found that interesting because I always look at anyone who comes to the table to speak. I say, okay, why are they here? What are they trying to accomplish? And what may or may not their agenda be? That's how my mind works as soon as anyone gets at the table.
you know, one of the things I found interesting here, I was with the various groups of friends, and talking about just fluoride in general. And oh, they're going to take fluoride out of the water. There's a bill to do that. And what I found really interesting about when I had conversations like that is, you know, you had this reaction sometimes from people that like, oh my gosh, they're going to hurt us in the sense that like they don't want the change. The change is the thing. They didn't really know anything about fluoride, right? But they view it that it must have been a good thing, and challenging that was a bad thing. You know, which is really an interesting reaction. And we do this for so many things, right? We're just defensive about the change. And, you know, as opposed to sort of saying, okay, let's think it through. So here's another little thing I think that's really interesting. So I didn't know this, but have you ever noticed different people? Because that will have like white spots on their teeth, you know, just a little discoloration, right? You know, so like the whole tooth looks maybe ivory, and then they've got like a spot on their teeth, you know, and that's called a fluorosis, you know. And so, but if you notice anybody like that, you had to have probably seen people,
Sure.
right?
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
And one of the things, this is caused by having excess fluoride. And so the preponderance of this, you know, basically when people measure it, is about double the incident rate, you know, over the last 40 years. You know, it's so now other things could be accounted for that. Maybe it's what you eat. Maybe it's you don't brush your teeth. I don't know all the other reasons. But I don't know about you, but I don't want white spots on my teeth.
Sure. Well, and you know what's interesting, Andy, the dentist who came to speak for the bill, he made the comment that he hasn't used any form of toothpaste on his teeth at all in a number of years. He just brushes his teeth with water. Now, I'm not for certain if it was tap water or another form of water. I'm assuming another form of water. But there's all
It
these
just
different variables when it comes to our dental health. You know, all I can say is I haven't had a cavity in 14 years, you know, and I'm getting older, of course, and I try my best to take care of our teeth because the last, you know, I'm sure you're like me, and you have friends who have uh, poor
hygiene.
teeth health. Is that the right word? But anyway, they no longer have their teeth, you know, and it's not fun. It's an adjustment. So, but the bottom line is, you know, what I said, and I encourage everybody to do their own independent research. But the way I look at things is here's the cons, here's the pros. The cons on fluoride to me are up here, and the pros are down here. And I think another thing to say, another note is we have you go to the store now, there are shelves full of all these different toothpaste, dental floss, mouthwashes, water picks, my dad used to water pick religiously. All these different things. They didn't have all that stuff back in, you know, the 1950s, even like when my dad was in school. So there's a wide array of things you can use to take care of your teeth that, you know, they didn't have then.
So on the pros, would the pros be, as you listen to it, just overall citizenry dental health? I mean, is that just the idea that, hey, look, fluoride's good for your teeth, therefore we should put it in there because if we don't, the people that can't afford toothpaste and toothbrushes and water picks and dental floss are going to have more bad teeth. And that's
Yeah,
not good for all of us. Is that like the whole?
yeah. I mean, basically, through all the research I had was it helps your dental health. That's it. And the lobbyists that came, the picture they painted was if we take this fluoride out of this water, it's going to hurt the poor children of the state of Arkansas. That was the narrative.
That's
And
the shtick.
that's
Because
it.
what I think is so we say, hey, all of us have to get fluorided, if that's the right way to say it, in order to like make sure that a small segment of the population who we argue doesn't have access to fluoride of any kind or whatever, no toothbrush, no toothpaste, no mouth rinse, and therefore we should all do it, even though there's some negatives. So the negatives are the white spots on our teeth. The negative is, hey, I don't want it, but I still have to get it. So now I may have to sort of get other water that's non-fluoridated if I wanted to. I know there's a study that says that maybe it impacts IQ. I don't know what I think about that, but okay, that's another thing that's in the negative comment. And then when you sort of look at it and say, well, gee whiz, where are all the poor people of Europe, with all of their massive teeth problems? I haven't read much about that issue, right? So it
Well,
sort of
sure.
calls into question, if the rest of the world's not doing it, is that really going to impact this small amount of people? And why not just try it? Like, what's the worst thing that can possibly happen, right?
Well,
And it's
sure.
gonna, and while it may not be that expensive, at least we could take it, we could just try it. And so a bill that says to what's on the floor right now, or the potentially on the floor coming out of committee, would be like, put it in the hands of the community. One of the things that I like about that is I love where direct democracy is involved. I love where you can say something that's not hyper complex, like fluoride, and let everybody decide themselves if they want it. And if everybody, if all my neighbors vote for it and I don't, I can live with that. What I don't like is I don't like it where there's sort of a big brother-esque, we need to like take care of you because you're not smart enough to take care of yourself. So we're going to put it in. You should do it because of people that they can't take care of themselves. And I accept that on some things, but a lot of other things I just would say, you need to be self-reliant. But what do you say?
Yeah, sure. Well, a couple points that you brought up as well. I mean, when you see Putin and his Russian soldiers, they're not gumming their mouth. Their teeth are not falling out. I mean, they look like stud horses. So the fact that there are that many countries that don't fluoridate their water and their teeth aren't falling out, that says something. Another point that was made in committee the other day is Arkansans' dental health is not good. It's not good at all. And that was an argument that I believe some of the people that came and spoke in favor of the bill, they touched on that and said, look, if this is so good for our teeth, it's obviously not helping things because our dental health in the state of Arkansas is not good at all.
Yeah, we're pretty low on pretty much all the rankings. I mean, when you look at the health and wellness rankings, we're near the bottom. I think generally speaking, you'd find us in various lists in the 40s,
Sure. And
and
let me
mainly,
make, Andy, let me make one more point as well. So it wasn't just a doctor and a dentist and concerned citizens that came to speak in favor of our bill. Several members of various water supplies in the state of Arkansas came. So here in Pope County, Tri-County Water contacted me. They had a board meeting. They said every single member of that board was in favor of our bill. They said, look, fluoride is bad. It doesn't need to be in the water. So it's not just concerned citizens, doctors, chiropractors showed up. We've got the people who actually run these various water supplies that are inserting this into the water and see how that process goes. And I don't believe, I'm not aware of anyone that works in water supply in the state of Arkansas that is opposed to our bills.
there you
Hey,
go.
let me fact check this real quick, guys. So you talked about somebody hopping in the committee meeting, and that was the lady who represented Delta Dental. And she's the one who said Arkansas is dead last in ranking in oral health, to which Senator Ricky Hill replied, Well, then clearly this program that we've had in place for 11 years is not working very well now, is it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Clearly.
To that point as well, I think there are 30 states that do not have any fluoridation mandates, which means that all 30 of those states without fluoridation mandates rank higher than us on oral health. So there
Yeah,
you go.
that's an excellent point. And so one of the things that, maybe we get wrong, and so what I'd like to encourage anybody that's listening, you're able to contact us at info@freearkansas.com and comment on any of the social media. Because look, we may be wrong, right? Like just tell us. You can be as snarky as you want. We'll take it. And so one of the things I've heard Matt you say that part of being an elected official is if people get upset, they can just take it to you, right? You could just part of the job is to listen.
Sure, and I'll say I agree with you 100%. That's freedom of speech, and again, I've been in office now over 2 years. I've not had anyone contact me via text, email, phone, the least bit disrespectful to me. Well, with the exception of a few people that were tired of getting political mailers. But when it comes to any legislative ideals, I haven't had anyone be disrespectful to me. And there's some legislators that'll say, well, if you're going to contact us, be nice, don't do this. Hey, I work for you. You're my boss. You reach out, and I'll do my best to listen to what you have to say.
I think in terms of political mailers and political advertising, it's like cowbell. We need more, right? It's I can certainly see where people go, look, how many flyers do I really need to get, right? And so you know, all right, well, we're going to leave it there today.